Connor is a guy who lives in a small coastal town and is trying to rebuild his life after being imprisoned. While jogging, he notices a charming woman on the shore and gets to know her. Marilyn is married and immediately warns the librarian about this so that he does not dream of closer connection. A couple of days later, she visits a guy in the library and covers her face with sunglasses. Connor notices this and realizes that Marilyn has a black eye that her despotic and cruel husband gave her. Trying to be a model worker, the librarian takes the woman to the department with detectives. She is interested in books in which her husband is killed and goes unpunished. She reminds that this is only fiction, but at the time hints that she would like a similar scenario in real life. A little later, she borrows 2 books to read and leaves $1 as a tip. Marilyn asks not to spend it, as her phone number is written on the banknote. The next morning, Connor meets with the parole officer. Jock is very rude and rude to visitors, as he is a guardian of the law and can do whatever he wants. A couple of days later, Connor calls Marilyn and invites her on a date, but the woman refuses as she's busy with her stepdaughter and is waiting for her husband to return. After a telephone conversation, the sheriff pesters the guy, who treats him with distrust and open disdain. The following Tuesday, Connor is working at the library as usual. Being a wonderful colleague, he offers the charming Kim to share the duties, giving her an easier task. The girl is pleasantly surprised by the attention and offers to join her for a run. She is interested in closer communication with Connor, but he does not notice hints, referring to her as a friend and colleague. At some point, the conversation is interrupted by new visitors who turn out to be Astrid and her stepmother, Marilyn. Kim is well acquainted with them, as she is engaged with a girl in the same sports section. Connor decides to help Astrid choose a book and finds out what kind of literature she needs. The girl received a letter, so the librarian goes to the bottom floor, with Marilyn having received the desired book. The woman decides to seize the moment and please her lover by kneeling before him. A couple of days later, Kim and Connor are walking around, chatting about a troublesome family. As it turned out, Astrid's father is a wealthy businessman, but at the same time, the girl is dating a former criminal named Jared. A couple of days later, Connor and Marilyn meet on the beach and make love. During the conversation, the woman admits that her husband raised his hand not only to her, but also to her daughter. She would happily divorce, but is forced to endure bullying in order to protect Astrid. Connor decides to be frank and admits that he recently got out of prison. 4 years ago, on the 4th of July, he was invited to a family holiday during which a verbal altercation arose between him and another guy. Connor couldn't stand the mistreatment of one of the guests and pushed Kevin, causing him to fall and hit his head on a concrete statue. The guy survived but ended up in hospital, and Connor was found guilty and sent to prison for 4 years. Returning to his car, the librarian notices that the key fob remains in his pocket, and the keys have disappeared somewhere. After saying goodbye to Marilyn, he returned to the meeting place to find them. A couple of days later, the couple phoned while the guy was jogging and agreed to meet. At the agreed time, they met at the ferry crossing to be alone. Marilyn has no one at home, so the couple went to her place to spend time with each other, enjoying every moment. They made love on the steps of the stairs, on the living room floor, and on the kitchen table. Marilyn again complains about her husband because he not only beats her and her daughter, but also does not show interest in them. He is used to getting everything easily and does not appreciate what he has. Connor suggests that the husband of his mistress may lose his life and she will become free, but his family is long livers and they should not hope for a miracle. At the end of the date, Connor notices that this time the keys remained in his pocket, but his favorite keychain in the form of a coin with an Indian has disappeared somewhere. He assumes that he lost it at Marilyn's house and asks for it to be returned as soon as she finds it missing. The woman is not sure that another meeting will take place because she has a difficult relationship with her husband, and every meeting with her lover is fraught with consequences. She wants to solve all the problems and offers not to see each other for a while, since Richard can notice a couple of lovers and severely punish them for their betrayal. A couple of weeks later, while talking, Connor and Kim spot Marilyn with her daughter and boyfriend in a cafe. The librarian tactfully asks a colleague to replace him at work, as there are other plans. Here he secretly hints at a new date for Marilyn. Jared is well acquainted with Connor since they were in prison together and can reveal the secrets of the past that the guy would not want to say. Marilyn also asks if lovers are always caught in the crime they committed. Answering the plot of one of the books, the librarian warns that a good ending is possible, but only with careful preparation of the crime. A little later, Marilyn calls Connor and talks about the next difficulties in relations with her husband. He is unbearable and continues to raise his hand against her and her daughter, as he feels complete control over them. Connor decides to help his mistress and offers to commit a crime. They could stay free, but only on the condition that she trusted him and adhered to the recommendations for precautionary measures. Marilyn is ready to do anything to stop this nightmare and asks the librarian to help solve the problem. A couple of days later, the pair meet and discuss the upcoming crime. Connor is ready to take the life of Marilyn's husband, but for this, he needs to guess the right moment. The woman reports that she and her daughter are leaving for another city on Tuesday for shopping, and Richard will be left alone. The back door of the house is not locked, so he can easily get inside. At the same time, Connor must be extremely careful, as the man has a revolver, which he hides under his pillow. At some point, the guy begins to doubt the sincerity of his mistress and suggests that she conceived all this for the sake of the inheritance. Marilyn categorically denies this, because if her husband falls asleep forever, then all the money will be received, not by her, but by his daughter. After discussing all the details, the couple makes love, after which the woman drives Connor home. Before he leaves, he arranges a way to get in touch so they don't get caught. To do this, the librarian offers the woman to refuse calls to his number and buy a second phone by which she could not be tracked down. Calling is also dangerous, so it is better to send an SMS message with a code signal, after which they will meet on the shore where they met. He understands that calling the police is the easiest way to track down a criminal, so it's important not to draw their attention. Upon returning home, Connor is greeted by Officer Jock and the sheriff. The police officer is prejudiced against the former prisoner, suspecting him of a series of new crimes. More recently, there have been several thefts in the city, and Connor is one of the suspects. Jock trusts his client and is ready to defend his rights, but only on condition that he has an alibi. Connor watched TV on the night of the last kidnapping and was with his mother, so he could not have taken part in the robbery in any way. Jock also tries to understand why the client did not answer the calls, but it turns out that Connor simply forgot to charge his mobile phone and it was turned off. On Tuesday, the librarian meets in a cafe with his work colleague, Kim. Kim openly admits her feelings and offers to go on another date, but Connor turns her down. He treats the girl well and considers her his best friend, but is not ready for more because he loves another. Kim takes this painfully and leaves without saying goodbye. At night, Connor breaks into Marilyn's house to take the life of her husband. After looking around on the first floor, he takes a heavy figurine and goes upstairs. There is no one in the bedroom, and the house is empty, and Richard's gun is indeed under the pillow. Considering that the man is not at home, he is about to leave when he suddenly hears that the businessman has returned. As it turned out, he was in a bar nearby for a few drinks and to relax. As soon as Richard ends the conversation, Connor approaches him. The businessman turns around and sees the criminal, after which he runs to his bedroom for a revolver. Connor chases after him and engages in a fight, but loses and ends up on the floor. Richard is ready to take the life of a criminal, passing it off as self-defense, and immediately gets a poker in the head from Jared. As it turned out, it was he who robbed the houses nearby and came to the mansion of his girlfriend to rob her father. Connor does not believe the words of the former criminal and shoots him twice, killing him after Richard. Having found his mask, the guy imitates a showdown between the robber and the owner of the house, after which he arranges a pogrom and runs away. At night, Marilyn calls Connor to make sure he's okay. The guy is annoyed and disappointed by the call, as this is additional evidence that exposes their criminal connection. He assumes that the mistress did it on purpose, but the woman discards his guesses as she was very worried. Marilyn is shocked that Jared was also in the house and denies any involvement. Trusting his mistress, Connor offers to stop communicating for a couple of months and asks the woman to be extremely careful when talking with investigators so as to not expose herself. The next weeks for the guy turned out to be very disturbing, and because any sound and a car passing by scares him. Every day he waits for the police to come and arrest him for a crime, but this does not happen. Soon, Connor meets with Jock and he reports what happened at the businessman's house. The investigation suggests that Richard and Jared killed each other during a fight, as the robber was in the house at the wrong time. Jock also notices a scratch on Connor's neck and is surprised that he cannot explain the reason for its occurrence. Sometime later, the guy is having dinner at a cafe and notices Kim. He would be happy to talk with a colleague, but she ignores him and she came to have dinner with another young man. A few days later, Connor receives a text message from Marilyn with a passphrase. Realizing that she needs an urgent meeting, the guy hurriedly packs his things and goes on a date. As soon as he leaves the house, he is greeted by the cops and Jock. Connor's blood was found under the deceased Richard's nails, proving that he was Jared's accomplice. The sheriff is ready to arrest the criminal, but Jock wants to talk to the client in order to justify him and reduce the term. Connor realizes that the case is solved, and after hitting the officer with his backpack, runs away. He wants to meet Marilyn at all costs and runs to the beach, but the police were already waiting for him at the same place. The librarian does not understand how they guessed and learns from Jock about the anonymous call of the woman who reported the coordinates. At that moment, Connor's cell phone rings, and he assumes that it is a mistress. Jock asks not to make sudden movements because the police are ready to shoot, but the guy ignores the warning. Just as he tries to get the phone, the sheriff shoots him twice in the last seconds of his life. Connor sees the image of his beloved Marilyn before his eyes, after which he falls asleep forever. A little while later, Marilyn takes a shower after the sea, relaxing on her own yacht. After that, she notices that her daughter is reading a detective story about a crime where the perpetrators were caught and sent to jail. The story is clearly not about them, because Marilyn and Astrid are not stepmother and stepdaughter, but lovers who carefully planned the crime and used Connor and Jared to achieve their goals. Richard prevented them from enjoying a rich life, and two guys in love saved them from this problem.